Okay, testing. Seeing if this is all good. Okay, so far so good.
First ever U.S. presidential candidate to be assassinated while running for office was?
While running for office?
While running for office. It was Joseph Smith, founder of the Mormon religion.
Wow.
He was running for president at the time.
Oh.
While he was traveling out to Salt Lake City.
That's right. So they were sort of constant. Mormonism.
Yeah. Mormons might be onto something. Man. We gotta look into it.
Mormonism is
I don't. While he was traveling out to Salt Lake City.
All right. Welcome back, folks, to another live stream. I had some great success yesterday, and I think these are really fun videos to do. It's also easy for me to learn just more about, different types of religions as a whole, as well as have my own commentary as a revert Muslim. And so I have a few things lined up for today that I found interesting when just searching for different videos to react to. This one was popping up on my timeline, the wild origins of the Mormon religion. I'm super fascinated about that. This one by Testify, who I debated him a couple weeks ago, which I'm going to be posting that here soon. But the chapter that silences every denial of Christ's deity. Let me just move this. What else do we got here? Arrogant Christian insults Muslim and rage quits after being exposed. Would you rather have your kids convert to atheism and Islam, or Islam? You gotta walk down the gnostic road. And then also Connor explains Christianity like you've never heard before. So I'm gonna start with this one because this one was interesting. I really want to watch this one next, and then I guess down the line, this one could be interesting. This one could be interesting, and that one could be interesting. And if we get to this one, I think we might do two of these, to be honest. And so let's just kind of hop into this and see what's cooking. And obviously, if anyone of you'd hop in here, then happy to discuss any of these topics as well.
Do you know who the first ever U.S. presidential candidate to be assassinated while running for office was?
While running for office?
While running for office. It was Joseph Smith, founder of the Mormon religion.
Wow.
He was running for president at the time.
While he was traveling out to Salt Lake City.
That's right. So they were sort of constant. Mormonism.
Mormons might be onto something. Man. We gotta look into it.
Mormonism is.
I don't want to get us distracted.
No, it's absolutely fascinating, man, because it's such a wacky story, the history of, and because it's relatively recent, it's like 1800s. There's more records. We know certain things happened. So we know that Joseph Smith claims to receive these golden plates. He's told by the angel Moroni, go and dig up these golden plates. The golden plates exist because in ancient Israel, just before the Babylonian captivity, some Jews, some Israelites were warned, and so they fled and they built boats and they sailed to America,
Jersey,
and they had entire civilizations. The Garden of Eden was in Jackson County, Missouri.
So this is what Mormonism is saying. Wait, hold on. This is a lot for my little brain to handle right now.
Plates exist because in ancient Israel, just before the Babylonian captivity, some Jews, some Israelites were warned, and so they fled and they built boats and they sailed to America,
Jersey,
and they had entire civilizations. The Garden of Eden was in Jackson County, Missouri.
Of course.
By the way. They have an entire civilization. They were I'm talking like Lord of the Rings, battles and wars and societies and all this kind of stuff. And then the very last person, the very last Nephite, I think, I might be getting some of this wrong. I think this is actually the son of Mormon, but Mormon's the one who puts it all together. So sort of writes down the record of his people on these golden plates and buries them.
Got it.
Because he's the last of his kind. And then Joseph Smith is in upstate New York, and God says to him, hey man, go and find these plates. So Joseph Smith has these plates, and they're written in something which is called Reformed hieroglyphics. So they look a bit like Egyptian hieroglyphics.
Let's see. We gotta learn. I wasn't meaning as a joke. Come on. Source material which Joseph Smith translated the Book of Mormon in the early 1800s from the angel Moroni. Directed Joseph Smith to where the plates were buried. While they're controversial, no one can examine them today. They were reportedly taken back by the angel after translation, so we don't have these plates. The evidence for the plates or civilization described in the Book of Mormon is still disputed. Critics argue that the plates never existed or were a product of folklore or fabrication. So the golden Mormon plates, it's actually used by oh wow. I just kind of said it just because I thought it would make, I just didn't know what to explain it. So did anyone see these plates besides Joseph Smith? Yes, but it depends on what "see" means. So these men signed a statement in the book claiming that they saw the plates by the power of God. Oliver, David, and Martin. They did not handle the plates. Their seeing was described as a vision from an angel, not a physical observation. And each later admitted that this was more of a spiritual sight rather than an everyday physical encounter. I did not see them as I see this pencil, but I saw them with the eye of faith. And there's a second group of eyewitnesses, a lot of Whitmers and Smiths, saying that they handled the plates. However, historians note that all 8 were either Smith or Whitmer family. So David Whitmer, it seems like. They had no independent witnesses outside their families. Several later said that they saw the plates covered with cloth but not exposed. Some hinted that they saw it in a visionary or mental way, not openly on the table. There are no photographs, no sketches, no independent or physical verification, no record of anyone outside the inner circle ever seeing them uncovered. After translation, Joseph said the angels took them back. Bottom line, no neutral, independent person ever physically saw the golden plates. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So, kind of could be hoopla. I mean, I've never read the Book of Mormon, so I wouldn't know anything that's in it. Oh, no.
Mormons might be onto something. Yeah.
Relatively recent. It's like 1800s. Golden plates. He's told by the angel Moroni, go and dig up these golden plates. The golden plates exist because in ancient Israel, just before the Babylonian captivity, some Jews, some Israelites were warned, and so they fled and they built boats and they sailed to America,
Jersey,
and they had entire civilizations. The Garden of Eden was in Jackson County, Missouri.
Of course.
By the way. They have an entire civilization. They were like, I'm talking like Lord of the Rings, like battles and wars and societies and all this kind of stuff. And then very last.
Oh, so this would have been ancient. This would have been thousands of years. But there would also be Native Americans there, right? Alright, so I'm asking, so it was said that Jews were in America escaping Babylon. Wouldn't there be Native Americans in America at that time? Short answer, yes, and that's one of the biggest historical problems with the Book of Mormon narrative. Yeah, around 600 BCE, so 600 years before Christ, there's a group that went to Jerusalem and traveled by boat and arrived in the Americas. And they became the ancestors of the Lamanites. Native Americans have been in America for 13,000 years, 20,000 years. So by 600 BCE, they were Native America was fully populated by natives, and different civilizations have formed. So Israel suddenly arriving in 600 BCE. There had already been millions of Native Americans, and they should have interacted, mixed, fought. Yeah, left artifacts, DNA. Yeah, what? And there's zero evidence of this. See, it was probably like such a good con back in the 1800s when people were a little bit like, there wasn't obviously so much information at our fingertips, such as ChatGPT. I'm able to look at this now. And then, yeah, genetics. Large studies consistently shown that Native Americans were from, like, Russia and Asia. Okay, so, I mean, this is a bunch of hoopla, but, I mean, it's a fascinating folklore, so let's listen. Joseph Smith was running for president and then died. I kind of want to look into this, too. All right, hold on. One more little search. He ran in 1844. Wow, before Abraham Lincoln. It was to put the Latter-day Saint in the White House. America needed major reforms based on what he called righteous principles. So he wanted to end slavery through federal buyouts, abolish prisons, create a national bank, massive territorial expansion, increase presidential power. Had a couple campaigns and appointed hundreds of electioneers. Wow. Never gained real traction. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
This person, the very last Nephite, I think. I might be getting some of this wrong. I think this is actually the son of Mormon, but Mormon's the one who like puts it all together. So, sort of writes down the record of his people on these golden plates and buries them.
Got it.
Because he's the last of his kind. And then Joseph Smith is in upstate New York, and God says to him, "Hey man, like,
Big.
go and find these plates." So Joseph Smith has these plates, and they're written in something which is called Reformed hieroglyphics. So they look a bit like Egyptian hieroglyphics. And Joseph Smith can miraculously translate them. And the way that he does it is not by looking at the plates. Puts the plates aside. He takes his hat. He takes a special kind of stone called a seer stone. He puts the seer stone in the hat. He puts his head into the hat. Yeah. And the stone starts glowing and translating what's on the golden plates. And he starts dictating. He starts saying it out loud.
Got it.
Someone starts writing it down.
Fire.
See, yeah, I mean, this is it. I mean, I'm a Muslim, right? And I know atheists and even Christians will say that the revelation of the Quran is some hoopla, like this, you know, this Muhammad individual, peace be upon him, just started essentially singing poetry, you know, from nothing. You know, he was just sweating and then he would just sing poetry to some degree, right? Reciting the Quran. I mean, this is like an even more wild version of that. It's just taking it to the next level, which is pretty funny and hilarious, but, you know, we continue.
And he's the only one who can see it.
He's the only one that can see the translation.
He's the only one who can see it glowing.
Yeah, because he's got his head in the hat, right?
Yeah.
And you can see that they have
never showed anyone the golden plates.
There are something like 11, maybe 13 witnesses to the golden plates.
Oh, there are.
Actually, if you read the Book of Mormon, it opens with the testimony of the 13 witnesses to the golden plates. Apart from that, nobody saw them. But the funny thing is, it sounds really wacky, but what I love about what Mormons can do is they go to Christians, and Christians are like, this is the most ridiculous false prophet nonsense, whatever. And they're like, oh, really? So how many eyewitness testimony written accounts do you have to the resurrection? Oh, you've got none. You've just got a few secondhand accounts. Oh, because we got 13. We've got.
Oh man, that's such a based argument. So the New Testament is secondhand accounts, right? It was from people who were potentially traveling. I think Luke was traveling with the eyewitnesses, as well as maybe Matthew was, maybe Mark. And so they're arguing that you don't even have firsthand eyewitnesses, and this does. That's hilarious. That's awesome. I'm going to start using that.
13 eyewitness signed, like affidavit, like written down testimonies of people who were still alive.
I got to ask another question. Wrote that wrong. None of the Gospels are first-hand eyewitness accounts. So it was anonymous originally, so the book of Mark. Not written by Mark the disciple. Mark was not a follower of Jesus during Jesus' lifetime. Considered second-hand at best. also originally anonymous. Not written by the Greek is too sophisticated for a Galilean tax worker. It copies 90% of Mark word for word. Whoa, what the heck? If Matthew was an eyewitness, he wouldn't need to copy another writer. Modern scholars, not written by the disciple of Matthew, therefore not firsthand, and at best second or third hand. Yeah, he admits. I remember reading in the New Testament. He admits he's a historian, so it has to be second or third hand. Is way too far advanced to come from a Galilean fisherman, written decades after John's death. Refers to the disciple whom Jesus loved in third person, meaning the author is not the disciple. Most scholars believe it was written by a later community, not John himself. Wow, this is actually groundbreaking. Holy crap. All 4 Gospels were written decades after. Well, yeah, we knew that. 30, 40, 60, 80. All 4 were originally anonymous. The names were added in the late 2nd century to give authority. No New Testament book is written by a verified eyewitness. Even Paul, earliest writer, never met Jesus in person. Well, yeah, we know that. Wow. Huh. The more you learn about Mormonism, the more you understand about Christianity, from what it seems like. That's awesome. Let's continue.
Alive and were questioned by like the press about it.
Yeah.
And like even one of the guys who who swore that he saw the golden plates later falls out with Joseph Smith, is kicked out of the Mormon
But
church.
he's still like, I saw them
but
plates.
he still says he saw the plates.
Wow.
I love it.
Now there's some debate about this because one of them sort of says, well, he saw them with his spiritual eyes, which kind of means it might have been a vision. But then he's asked about that and he says, look, gentlemen, look at your hands. As truly as you see your hands, I saw those plates, right? So there's all of this going on, right? So Joseph Smith then like founds this religion off the basis of it. And they don't like being called Mormons because Mormon is the name of one of their I guess he's a prophet, but he's like the guy that collates the Book of Mormon. They are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day
Islamists or something.
Yeah, or like calling them a Mohammedan probably is more similar, which is what they used to call Muslims because they sort of misunderstood what they were all about. But yeah, like they sort of flip and flop about whether it's okay to call them Mormons, because it's a bit clunky to say member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints or Latter-day Saint, right? But so Joseph Smith, they're setting up communities and they're trying to find somewhere to like set up their community. So they're traveling around the United States, and when they get to Missouri, they cause such a problem in Missouri that there is something called, I think it's called the Missouri Executive Order 45 or something, otherwise known as like the Mormon Extermination Order, which is where the governor of Missouri, based on some like inflated reports about what the Mormons were doing, gets so like worried and paranoid about them that he issues an order to exterminate Mormons, to drive them out of the land by force, which basically means that you could just like kill Mormons. You just like go Mormon hunting because he wanted them gone.
America back in the day. I mean, even now we're still pretty barbaric, but I mean the fact that was just a law written and it seems like plain English. Obviously, I haven't read the law myself, but that's just crazy, man.
I'm like in the United States, there was a law passed, an executive order, that said we're just going to kill Mormons and drive them out of our land.
Kill white people.
I know.
Which is like...
Yeah, that's not shocking for me.
That's light work, right?
It's just...
That's great. That's awesome. Hold on. All right. Yeah. Dude, I mean, it was also, Pete, they hated Italians. They hated, what did they hate? In America, they hated Italians. I mean, they hated everyone, funny enough. Catholics, too, obviously. I mean, yeah, when my grandfather, when he immigrated here with his parents, and they changed his name from Sven to Edward, and they forced, we're going to like English classes because no one wanted to be known as anything else besides American, and so the fact that they had a law to kill white people, which were Mormons, is, I mean, that's the most American thing it gets.
Like
the worst thing America did, you could say.
Like 1800s, it's crazy, man. You wouldn't believe. It's just wild.
Don't take us too far away from Jesus. I want to.
Oh, sure, okay, but yeah, we can definitely get back to Jesus. But Joseph Smith, eventually, so part of when he decides to
Just hold on. Don't take us back. Don't take us away from
Far away from Jesus. I want to.
Oh, sure. Okay,
Watch.
but yeah, we can definitely get back to Jesus.
Just
but Joseph Smith
so hardcore.
eventually.
That's
so
crazy.
part of when he decides to run for president, part of his running campaign is that he wants to annex Texas because he wants to make Texas like the land for the Mormon people. So that's part of his thing, and eventually, so Mormons are into like polygamy.
Yeah.
They were. Now, if you're a polygamist, you can't be a Mormon. Like it's anathema to them. In like the 1980s or something, they finally said it's not right. But they got one of the reasons they got in so much trouble with the U.S. government was because they had multiple wives, and that was seen as totally wrong. And so Joseph Smith is now. I can't remember which state he's in when he actually dies. I think it might be Illinois, but I'm not sure about
I
that.
think he dies in Illinois.
He dies in Illinois? I think that's right.
Missouri's like the third spot they end up, correct?
Yeah, they've sort of been all over the place, and I think Illinois is where he gets killed.
He just Googled it.
And yeah, I mean maybe okay, great.
They just kept getting kicked out of places.
Yeah, they keep getting
They're
kicked
like the
out.
Christian Jews.
Yeah, seriously, but this is the thing.
Like the
So Mormons will
Christians.
say, Mormons will point out that they have a history of like persecution, and people sort of don't know about this. It's quite amazing because I debate Christians quite a lot, and they talk about how amazing it was that Christianity grew from just a small group of people to taking over the Roman Empire. And I'm like, the sociologist Rodney Stark calculated that in the first like 200 or 300 years, I think, after the birth of Christianity, the growth rate that they experienced is exactly the same as the Mormon Church.
Wow.
And then people say, yeah, but they were being persecuted by the Roman Empire. I'm like, have you heard of the Missouri Extermination Order? Like, it's great. There is a newspaper in Illinois that criticizes Joseph Smith for his polygamous practices. I think at this point, Joseph Smith is the governor of some kind of province of Illinois. And so he decides to like shut down the newspaper because he doesn't like the criticism. So he like bans it. Then there's like a riot because he's like suppressed this newspaper. Then Joseph Smith institutes martial law because of the riots, and then he flees. And then I think the governor of Illinois says, "Okay, Joseph Smith, you've got to come back. You're going to face trial. We'll keep you fine, but just you got to come back." So Joseph Smith goes back. He gets put in prison, and then
I mean, yeah, I'm so curious about what the intentions are of Mormonism. Was it for this guy's own political, establishing his own political career? Was it for, like, was he just tripping balls? I mean, it's such a fascinating, crazy religion for sure.
And this big angry mob descend on the prison, and they break into the prison. They shoot his brother in the face. His brother says, "I'm a dead man," and then he dies. And then Joseph Smith tries to escape out of a window. They shoot him. He falls out of the window onto the floor, and they shoot him dead again. So he dies in what is essentially a prison shootout.
Wow.
Whoa.
And for the Mormons, this is a site of religious martyrdom. So you can now go to that prison. It's now owned by the Latter-day Saints, and it's a site that they go to as the point of martyrdom for their prophet. There it is. There's the house.
Wow.
So Joseph Smith was killed falling out of that window. There's a
Wow.
there he is. So
That's wild.
big mob show up and kill him. So Joseph Smith becomes like a martyr, and that's that. And then there's your typical religious like succession crisis. Who's going to take over? I think there's a point where I think it's Brigham Young who's giving a speech saying I should be the leader, and like multiple people report seeing him like transfigure into the likeness of Joseph Smith. There's all kinds of wacky stuff going on, right?
Yeah.
And
Super wacky.
yeah, like it sounds kind of insane, but is that any more insane than some of the Christian stories that we hear?
But it was farther ago.
Yeah, exactly. And so we have this feeling.
So it's better.
Yeah, of course.
People sort of go like, "Oh, but that's ridiculous," as if God would appear to someone in upstate New York. That's ridiculous. It's like, well, that's how it sounded like God being born in Nazareth.
Yeah.
Like they
The guy
say
in
in the
Galilee?
Gospels, people are saying in the Gospels, like, is this not Joseph's son? Is this not the guy from Nazareth? Does anything good come from Nazareth? They're saying the same thing.
They're talking about it like it's Staten Island.
No, literally.
Yeah, they actually are. Yeah, seriously though, that's what's going on.
Why did Nazareth have a reputation of just?
It was just like a nowhere town.
It's like a fentanyl town.
The thing is, like the Jews are expecting a Messiah, and the Messiah, like there are different views on what the Messiah was going to be, but the sort of general line on this is that they were expecting people because they're at the time they're being persecuted by Rome, so they are awaiting their Messiah
to liberate them from.
who will come and liberate. So they're expecting like this military leader who's going to lead them into battle against Rome, and they're going to win.
I got a hippie.
They got a hippie, exactly. So
Well, was he really a hippie, or is that kind of the way that
depends
his
what you
whole
mean by a
revisionist
hippie. Like
history-
he was pretty like he wasn't just like a sort of peace and love man.
kind of badass a little bit.
He said some pretty serious stuff and did some serious things. I mean, the obvious
Healer,
example.
political revolutionary.
Yeah, he's
Flipping the
he's a healer,
table,
but yeah,
right?
flipping,
Like,
flipping the
he was
tables. and
about that
stuff. He goes
action.
into the temple and he in John's gospel he makes a cord. He like puts some.
All right, so yeah, it looks like we're deviating from the Mormon stuff. I mean, yeah, super interesting. I didn't know that. For some reason, that I thought that Jesus came here after the resurrection. In terms of the Mormon, belief is that after he was resurrected, he actually came to America. I didn't know it was the Jews that were leaving Babylon. So that's, hey, you learned something. And then we also learned about the Gospels. None of them being a first-hand report, which is crazy. And so this is something I'm super fascinated in. And then we'll go into this John 1:1. That's only 5 minutes. Let's look into this.
Most people point to John 1:1, the Word was God, or 2 Peter 1.
So we have to remember this is about the chapter that silences every denial of Christ's deity. Let's go.
1, our God and Savior Jesus Christ, to show that Jesus was divine. Those are solid verses, but Hebrews 1 might be the strongest of them all. And it's not just one isolated line.
Let's do John 1:1. Let's look at it. Which, again, as we already know, what was it, 70 years in his third-hand report. The controversy of the last phase is the Word was God. But here's the Greek text. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with the God. And the Word was a God. Wow. The key Greek issue. The God, and then God divine-like. The final phrase lacks the definite article. In Greek grammar, when a predicted noun lacks the rule, it describes quality, not identity. So the Word was the God. It actually means the Word was divine. It was of God's nature. That's why many scholars translated the Word was divine, the Word was godlike. What God was, the Word was. Even early Christian theologians recognize this nuance. But John 1:1 actually makes two distinctions, being that the Word was with God, and the Word was of divine quality. And how's the Quran? Oh, yeah, let's look at the Quran. How does it agree? Jesus was a miraculous messenger. Jesus has a spirit. So yeah, I guess the Word is not the same person. So a more precise translation would be, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was divine. And so people think in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, which that's not true. So, I mean, that's the thing about... Testify is a nice guy. I mean, I've only spoken with him once. But it's just... He doesn't look at the grammatical context of the New Testament. So already, in the first 5 seconds, everything that comes after this video is already going to be wrong. If your first understanding of your point is wrong from the grammatical context of what the true interpretations and the true intentions of what your third-person report is, then the rest of your video is going to be off, right? If you shoot an arrow and you're off by a centimeter, it's gonna, from the mark, it's gonna be a big difference. And as more centimeters and millimeters off it is, it's gonna be even massive difference. And so, I mean, this video is already null and void. But let's continue.
Most people point to John 1:1, the Word was God, or 2 Peter 1:1, our God and Savior Jesus Christ, to show that Jesus was divine. Those are solid verses, but Hebrews 1 might be the strongest of them all. And it's not just one isolated line. The entire chapter is an argument that Jesus stands infinitely above the angels.
Okay. Book of Hebrews. But I mean, this is not even, again, this is not a whole first of an eyewitness, a first eyewitness. So it's written to Jewish followers of Jesus who are struggling with persecution and tempted to return back to traditional Judaism. We don't even know who wrote it. It's anonymous, and unlike Paul's letter, it doesn't claim authorship. So obviously it wasn't written by Paul. Could be some of these other people. It could also be some different scholars. Why was it written? Because Jewish Christians were being persecuted. What are some of the major themes? That Jesus is greater than angels. Jesus is greater than Moses. That's rough. Jesus as the high priest. He's the ultimate high priest. And a new covenant replaces the old covenant. So what are some of the controversial passages, which I'm sure, Testify will talk about? Your throne, O God. Christian use this as divine of Jesus, but in context it quotes Psalm 45, where a human king is called God in a metaphoric sense. That's huge. Hebrews 7, Jesus is compared to the Babylonian king, I believe, a mysterious priest king, which is a symbolic argument, not a literal one. It abolishes sacrifices and is refers to the old covenant law of Moses, saying that's over with. Yeah, authors unknown. Jesus is a divine priest. The Torah is considered obsolete. The book pushes theology Jesus never taught. We got dogs barking. Even the dogs are freaking out about this. So it sees this as some later theological construction that weren't teachings of Jesus. Okay, so back to back, two massive errors in this. See, I mean, that's how can you start off a video? I get where he's coming from, but it's like, just a quick, simple search and you can find the truth. And he's pushing this wrong propaganda. We're 19 seconds in and we've already destroyed most of his arguments.
Which, in a first century Jewish context, was a direct claim to divinity. And theologians Robert Bowman and Ed Komaszewski capture this perfectly in their book, Putting Jesus in His Place. They use the handy acronym HANDS, showing that Jesus shares the honors, attributes, names, deeds, and seat of God Himself, and Hebrews 1 checks every single box. We can use HANDS in Hebrews 1 to show our Jehovah's Witnesses friends that Jesus is indeed God.
Hold on. Alright, I haven't heard this argument before. This is new, but I'm intrigued.
First of all, honors. Whom do the angels worship? Hebrews 1:6 says, when God brings the firstborn into the world, He says, let all God's angels worship Him. Now, worship is not a small thing in the Bible. It's the ultimate line in the sand.
Hold on, Hebrews 1:6. Let's look at it. And again, when He bringeth in the firstbegotten into the world, He saith all, and let all the angels of God worship Him. But here's the translation in context. The word does not always mean divine worship. It mostly means bow down, show respect, which the angels did that to Adam in the Quran, so that makes sense. It's constantly used for people bowing. Is this supposed to be, proskino, right? Or proskineo, rather than latrero, which is the divine. So, again, we have Testify not looking at the Greek grammatical context of what the true interpretations and understanding is of the book he's referencing here, which is Hebrews. Is mostly used for people bowing down to kings, servants bowing down to masters, even Lot bowing down to angels. The verse quoted here comes from the Old Testament. Let all the angels of God bow down to Him. So we even have an understanding that God, or that, angels have bowed down to humans before. Which again, if you look at the Quran, the angels all bow down to Adam. What was meant in Jewish culture that you can bow down to a king, a prophet, angels, blah, blah, blah. Daniel 3, divine worship of idols, divine worship of God alone. Oh, that's the Peleg. That's the other. That's like the third worship term here. Hebrews 1 never claims Jesus is God. God anointed Jesus as an heir. God never claimed Jesus is God. Verse 2, God appointed Jesus heir. Jesus sits next to God. Jesus is greater than angels. Jesus is God. In verse 9, God tells Jesus, sit on my right hand. So yeah, he's exalted, honored, bowed down to, anointed, but he's never said to be equal. So what does this verse actually mean? Let all the angels of God bow down before him. The point is, angels honor Jesus. Jesus ranks above angels. Jesus is the Messiah and God's chosen son, but he is under God. And that's consistent with some of these other verses, such as the Father is greater than I, which, Trinitarians will say that that there's three co-equal partners in this trinity of this monotheistic religion called Christianity, but then John 14:28 obviously destroys that argument there. Hebrews 1:6 does not teach Jesus is God. It's that God sends his son into the world. Angels bow down to him out of respect, which is not new to prophets. And Jesus is honored, but God remains above him. Okay, so let's see what he's going to say about this.
Worship him. Now, worship is not a small thing in the Bible. It's the ultimate line in the sand. In Matthew 4:10, when Satan tries to tempt Jesus to worship him, Jesus responds by quoting Deuteronomy, saying, "You shall worship the Lord your God, in him."
So this is rough. If he's just flexing over this, this is and forcing this argument, this square-headed argument into a round hole, because I don't think I haven't released the videos yet, but this word worship is a proskenio word that we learned up here, which does not always mean divine worship. It actually means to bow down and show respect. And so, which is weird, because then this is this divine entity. So you're saying you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only shall you serve. And this is the latrero word. So that God deserves divine worship. And so I'm interested to see what he says about this.
Only shall you serve. Worship is an honor reserved for God only. And yet,
no, as we just noticed, that's also completely wrong.
Jesus receives that very honor. The gospel shows human beings worshiping him. And in Philippians 2, it says that every knee shall bow.
Let's listen to this, and I have something to show.
Even rebellious spirits. And Revelation 5 shows all of heaven, including the angels themselves, falling before the Lamb. And in Hebrew,
so he's saying that worship is due to, what's up, Nubs? So I'm here explaining that, and I'm here explaining the grammatical context of the Bible right now. I don't know if you've heard of this Testify guy. I've actually debated him before. I would say he beat me because I was not prepared. I just kind of Rambo styled into it. But we had some things that we disagreed with. That is slavery. Hold on, I'll respond to that in a second. But right now, this creator is arguing the word worship here, and he's looking at it from the English language rather than like what the language the Bible was written in, specifically the New Testament, which is Greek. And there's like three main words for it. There's proskenio, which is like bow down, show respect, pay homage. And this is like littered throughout the entire Bible. Even like you have Lot bowing down to angels. You have angels bowing down to God. Well, you have to look at the grammatical context of what this book was written in, because what was the intentions of the book? We can't just manipulate. We can't just pretend and manipulate that. Oh, we're putting like creators like Testify are putting words literally into Jesus' mouth, when it's like Jesus did not say any of these things. And also the Greek language is confusing, and the Bible is written in 3 languages. And so, I've been kind of going deep as well. I'll go back into the worship note, but I was also, were there eyewitnesses? No. For sure. And then look, there were none of them were first, like, what was the authorship? Second hand, third hand, right? And that's like, the most quoted book of the Bible. And, they're actually all anonymous. These names are added in way later to show authorship and to show authority. So, anyways, going back to the worship part, that this is the other word, pala. That's the other term for worship. But the two main worship words are proskino or proskuneo and latreris. And yeah, this author here, this creator, is trying to say that, because Jesus has received these different levels of worship, and especially specifically in Revelations, that all the angels bow down to the Lamb, right? Here's a quote, Revelations, where Jesus tells his followers they will be worshipped by the synagogue of Satan, using the word proskuneo. And so this right here just defeats the author's entire argument about worship being God alone. So Revelations 3:9, the proskuneo word is used, and Jesus is telling his followers that I will make them come and worship before your feet. So in this line right here, if you're going on the logic that the author is trying to use in this video, that worship is for God and God alone, that this proskuneo word is, then Jesus is telling his followers that they're God as well, which obviously breaks the whole monotheistic argument of Christianity. Which, I mean, there's other things I can point to, but I mean, just this one alone. And it's sad how they will one day. They will one day, but not today. But it's sad. It's sad that that people are, forcing words into Jesus's mouth and not truly looking at the Greek grammatical context or the Hebrew grammatical context or the Aramaic grammatical context of, what the Bible is saying. Like, what is the thesis and what is the argument? Because nowhere. Yep, yeah, you guys are my boys. But nowhere does Jesus ever say that he is God. And even, like I said, he's telling his followers that they're going to be worshipped. And if that's the argument here, then he's telling his worship that his followers are gods. Which, again, it breaks down. I mean, this video is a rough one. Already, I've only been a minute and 30 seconds in. And unfortunately, Testify is misleading his audience. All right, hold on. Let me read some of these messages. Okay, if there is not a single eyewitness of Jesus' existence in all of history, then I'm going to question it until there is. Facts. Also, there was it Caesar or was it another Roman emperor that also has some resurrection story? The resurrection story isn't unique to Jesus only, right? Or the resurrection story is not unique to Jesus only. There are other Greek, emperors and people that have also, claimed, there's eyewitnesses too. So let's other resurrections besides Jesus. Let's check. Besides Jesus. And then Vidyadhar? Hey, that's the question of 2025. Why is no one else watching me? Hey, we'll find out. Let's go. 2026, big year. Big year for content. And then how could Jesus say anything in Revelation if he was already dead and gone to heaven? I get this was more of a dream, Nubs. This was like a dream by Peter, I believe. And so this is like the things that he saw, and he witnessed them and wrote them down. So here are some other resurrection stories. Where's the Greek one? Dionysus. Let's see. Inside the Old Testament. Here's other resurrections. No, but I want to see. I'm not a Christian. I'm a Muslim. Other resurrections. No, are you? No, I'm not. I'm not a Christian. The resurrection from Greek emperors and timeline. I'm butchering this question. But are you? Let's see, Hercules. No, I want to see like actual emperors. I'm kind of butchering my question. That's why it's giving me some nonsense. Okay, yes. Oh, here we go. Alexander the Great. Here's another legend. Yeah, atheist. Yeah, Nubs is an atheist. Yeah, so Caesar. Here's another legendary story. I mean, it. Like I said, this isn't unique. So, could it make sense where some of these stories were cherry picked to make it seem like it was true? Who knows, man? People say weird things, like time and time again. Like, it's almost like the resurrection story is synonymous to, people seeing aliens, right? And recounting, and I'm sure there was potentially some supernatural or even just, whatever, mass psychosis going on that, like, during when people, like, recount for alien, like aliens showing up, in these, like, South American countries. I wonder if there's some, like, mass psychosis where they just were, like, trained to believe that some of this stuff was true. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, Nubs. Because, I mean, and especially with how chaotic the entire book of Revelations is, it's a very hard thing to understand. And I wouldn't call all of, I mean, yeah, who knows, man? Like, was he divinely guided to write something? It could be. It could be. I mean, even as a Muslim, I have to say that I've met some divinely guided, not meaning that they're divine in any way, shape, or form, but I have met some, pretty, like, people that, like, honest Christians that I could see that, were, on the path that God was providing for them. So, was Peter that way? Who knows, man? Who knows? Let's see, what's your next one? You cannot be witness to things that happen in a dream, as dreams are not real. True. Now, it is through the Islamic lens of dreams, right? And also, like, if we even want to reference, like, Joseph, right? Like, Joseph was getting, communications from God through dreams, as well as, Islamic, it's a more, like, deeper understanding of how dreams work, where some dreams can be from God, some dreams can be the whispers from the devils and the shaitans, as well as some dreams are just from your own, freaky mind, right? And I'll tell you right now, I had a really weird dream the other night. It was that was like from my own. I don't even know what that was from. It was hella weird. But yeah, anyways, let's continue breaking this down.
All of heaven, including the angels themselves, falling before the Lamb. And in Hebrews 1:6, God himself commands the angels to worship his son. That's not at all normal. Angels...
It is, okay. I'm not going to re-show all of this, but it is normal. It is totally normal.
Just don't hand out worship casually. In fact, twice in Revelation, the Apostle John tries to bow before an angel, and both times he gets rebuked by that angel. Revelation 19:10 and 22:9, it says, "Don't do that, worship God." That shows how glorious angels are.
Okay, but then, like, Lot worshipped angels. Lot worshipped, bow down to angels. As we already saw this earlier, Lot did that. So again, this proskuneo word it's used relatively lightly. I won't confirm or deny that fact of what you just said. If I've ever had an experience like that in my younger youth, but that's why I'm like, what you're saying isn't, I can't confirm or deny. Maybe. Or, again, divided by their own insecurities and by the devils. But yeah, I mean, again, he's trying to say that angels, that Paul was denying worship, and that, Paul tried worshiping these angels, and they're saying, don't do that, only worship God. But in this exact, if we look at Genesis 19:1, Lot saw them and rose to meet them and bowed down, proskuneo, with his face to the ground. He bowed down to two angels. And so it seems like he's playing, the author, the creator of this video is playing peekaboo with the truth here. I mean, it's been a minute 51, and he hasn't. He's looking at it from the English language. Yeah, the English language makes it cushy and nice. I mean, still nowhere in the English language in the New Testament does Jesus ever call himself God, which is like, I would be a Christian if that was the case. It never says that. But even then, he's picking and choosing, saying like, oh, angels are saying that they won't accept worship or bowing downness, and it happens in literally the first book of the Bible.
It says, don't do that, worship God. That shows how glorious angels are. If you saw one, you'd probably want to fall down and worship him, but they refuse it and point worship back to God. So think about the contrast here. Angels tell men, only worship God. But
okay, that's a no. You have a StreamYard? I do not have a StreamYard. Why, you want to get up? You want to chat? I'd be happy to. I've done 2 debates so far. I think I'm supposed to do a part 2 and a part 3 with someone soon. I think I was saying that last time. But no, I don't have a StreamYard.
God tells angels, worship the Son, and Jesus accepts it. Second, attributes. Who is unchanging and eternal? Some of God's attributes are unique to him alone. Nobody else is eternal. Nobody else is unchanging.
Oh, I'm so excited for this. This is going to be some slop. This is going to be some crap that he's serving on a silver platter. Hold on. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's just go back. I got to hear this one. I got to hear this one from the beginning.
And Jesus accepts it. Second, attributes. Who is unchanging and eternal? Some of God's attributes are unique to him alone. Nobody else is eternal. Nobody else is unchanging. And yet, Hebrews 1:10 through 12, quoting the 102nd Psalm, applies those exact attributes to Jesus. They will perish, but you remain. They will all wear out like a garment, but you are the same, and your years will have no end.
That is a hey, thanks for joining. Thank you for joining Vidyahar. Thanks for joining. Hopefully I'll see you on a future stream as well. Yeah, no, dude, this is, hold on. This is the most, fitting, Christians will take the fattest and largest square block and fit it in the most micro hole, acting, and hey, that's not a sexual innuendo for anything, but this is, there's no way that this is his argument here. Hey, thank you, Vidjohar. Hopefully I'm saying your name right, but I appreciate the follow. Okay, yo.
Those exact attributes to Jesus. They will perish, but you...
Because... I'm assuming you're talking to Vidjohar and not me. But there's no way that he's saying that he has these godlike these godlike characteristics when he was literally born from the Virgin Mary. There's no way. He's trying to, and yes, the idea of being eternal and heaven and all of these things, obviously, this is another reason why I like Islam, because it has just a more deeper understanding of this life and the hereafter. But, if we want to just break it down from a religious logic point of view, right? I'm sure atheists would say this is illogic to think, since they think after this life that we currently have, death is the final form. But, this statement that's saying, like, they will all wear out like a garment, but you are the same and your years will have no end. You're just saying that this is eternal and that there's an eternal life after this. And they will all perish is probably referring to the non-believers. Now, I guess let's look at this from the Greek grammatical perspective. I am taking a broad assumption, so that's what I'm saying. Let's look into it. In the beginning, as last, the word, the foundation of the earth and the heavens are the works of argue that this is calling Jesus Lord and crediting him with creating the universe. But it's more complicated than it looks. This is a direct quote of 102. It's talking to Yahweh, God, not the Messiah. The original Hebrew text is 100% about God the Father. I mean, every night is a mini death. But you are right. That was definitely from an ego perspective of assuming some things, right? Who is the Hebrews applying to Psalm 2? Interpretation A is that 102 is about the Father, and 1:9 says Jesus is God. Jesus is distinguished from the Father throughout the whole chapter. Yeah. So the grammar and context contradict this idea. That's legit. That's hype nubs. That's what I'm talking about. So, but most scholarly view is that this is part of a larger speech God is giving, but the referent changes back to Father, not the Son. And so 8 through 9 words addressed to the Son, 10 through 12 addressed to God the Father. And then the Greek grammar supports interpretation B. Therefore, God, your God, has anointed you. Here, Jesus is distinguished from God who anoints him. Yeah, you don't anoint yourself. I mean, unless you're Napoleon, then you can anoint yourself as the ruler of France. And your Lord in the beginning laid the foundation. The shift in subjects is natural, going from God speaking to the Son to then quoting Psalm addressed to God. So 110, and then that's the next thing. It contradicts. Like, made through Jesus. God made the world through Jesus. So he's not the architect, he's the instrument. Jesus is the image of God, not God himself. Jesus has which in Islam, that's like an essence of God. He's not obviously not God, but they believe Jesus has this like spiritual essence of God, but through the help of the angel Gabriel. Jesus has a God above him, and then God says to Jesus, sit at the right hand. So, I mean, if you look at the entire just first 13 verses, none of they kind of contradict each other back and forth, rather than having a flow of, trying to make the argument that Jesus is somehow God. And then early Christians never used Psalm 102. Yep, zero evidence from any of this stuff. And so basically, Christians claim that Jesus is calling himself Lord here, but what the text is actually saying is that it's making a series of quotations. It refers to God the Father. The grammar allows for a switchback. The entire chapter emphasizes Jesus is beneath God, not equal. And then he's the instrument, not the creator.
You remain. They will all wear out like a garment, but you are the same, and your years will have no end. That is the same thing Yahweh says about himself in Malachi 3:6. I, the Lord, do not change. Hebrews is saying that about Jesus. And verse 3 says, the Son is the radiance of the glory of God, and the exact imprint of his nature. That's why the doctrine of the eternal generation of the Son makes sense. His way of being God is eternally from the Father, but he shares the very same essence. He's the exact imprint. Every divine attribute...
Dude, it's crazy. Exact imprint. But no, there's not every divine attribute. This is, again, another Christian lie. When he was literally born from the Virgin Mary. Right? How can a God be born from a person?
Belongs to him. Third in the acronym HANDS is names. Who is Israel's Lord and God? Hebrews 1 applies God's own names to Jesus. Verses 7 through 8 contrast...
Didn't we just debunk this? Where's 1:1? We gotta look at 1. We gotta go back. We gotta look back at 1:1. Let's just type it out. So yeah, we look at the Greek grammatical context. God spoke through prophets. Yeah, the Bible does frame Yahweh in a very interesting light. Rather than being a forgiving, it makes it more jealous. Now in Islam, he's known as he easily goes to requiting, right? So, brings in punishment. God, who at sundry times and in the divine manner spake in the time past unto the fathers by the prophets. So in the Greek text, it says, in many portions and in many ways, God is consistent throughout the entire book. Spoke through the prophets, spoke in past to the fathers throughout the prophets. Jesus is not the one who spoke directly to Moses. The speaker in the Old Testament is God the Father. Jesus is not portrayed as Yahweh speaking. Yeah, this separates from him immediately. God has spoken to us in these last days by his Son. So again, if you just go to the next section, you can see the further distinction between the two. God spoke through prophets. It's funny where it says it literally in the first thing, and then when Jesus quotes any parts of the Old Testament, like Deuteronomy or Psalms, they're like, but he's quoting it like he's God. It's like, well, no, God spoke through prophets. I mean, that's kind of what it means to be a prophet. Look at Samuel; he spoke through Samuel in the Old Testament, like in the book of Samuel, obviously, and then 1 Kings, 2 Kings. It's not the Bible that frames it. He quotes himself to be these things, and if you look at the origin of Yahweh and Jehovah, they are minor storm gods from the Canaanite pantheon. Yeah, I think I've heard something like that before. I mean, there's this, it's kind of like how the Hindus, they believe, there's all the different gods, but then Allah is like the creator of all the gods, or like the highest level of gods. So what does Hebrews 1:1 prove? Jesus is not God who spoke in the Old Testament. Jesus is not Yahweh, the Torah. He's a final messenger of Yahweh, and God is above Jesus. All right, wow. How long can we spend on this 5-minute video is the question of the day.
Angels with the Son. He makes his angels winds, and his ministers flames of fire. But of the Son he says, your throne, O God, is forever and ever. That's Psalm 45, and it directly calls Jesus God. Verses 10 through 12 cite Psalm...
No. I'm sure we already looked at this, but let's look at it again. And why it does not refer to Jesus in the original context. It's a wedding song written for a human king. So, they don't even understand, they don't even, just... Again, it's like the issue that I have with Christians is, one, and I don't blame them actually, because the Bible is a very long, complex book, right? The New Testament as a whole is 3 times larger than the Quran if we look at the Greek words versus the Arabic words. It's like 1.2 times if you look at the English words or something like that, maybe 2 times. I think it's like 1.2. So anyways, just the New Testament alone, which is like 150 something pages, and I think I had like the NIV version or something like that. But it's like it's such a it's a super comprehensive book, and it's hard to truly understand the entire context of what each book was arguing. We look at Psalm 45, which is a wedding song written for a human king, and they're trying to use this verse, saying that it's somehow for Jesus claiming to be God, but it's 100% about a human ruler, some King Solomon or Davidic king. The Christians cite Psalm 45 because in Hebrews it quotes, your throne, O God, is forever and ever. But if you look at the verse in Hebrew, the problem is Elohim doesn't always mean God, which, we got to look at John, because there's another type where Elohim is used for the beggar. But we'll digress that for another day. So it can mean God, gods, divine ones, different mighty men. Moses is called Elohim in Exodus. Judges are called Elohim. Angels are called Elohim. So the correct translation is the throne is of God, and your throne, a mighty one, which would be referring to the powerful king, the Messiah, right? So some of the Jewish translations, your divine throne is everlasting, or your throne is the throne of God. So it's saying that your throne is like essentially protected, or it was given to you by God. Again, this could be for the Messiah or some appointed king, such as a Davidic ruler. So this proves that the king in Psalm 45 has a God above him, therefore is not God. Man, dude, we're absolutely smoking this video. Jeez, this is rough showing over here.
Psalm 102. You, Lord, laid the foundation of the earth in the beginning. The word Lord, Kyrios, is the same Greek title used in the Greek.
I love how he finally... See, it's almost like... It's like, is he doing this on purpose? Is he trying to manipulate the audience to show that he has some scholarly opinion and he has this like scholarly understanding, but then, persuade them and propagate a message? Like, why is he only looking at this word? He's finally bringing in some Greek grammatical context, but then just totally negating everything else. That's a dangerous way of trying to, argue. I mean, he's trying to argue that Christianity, that the Bible is the one true religion. I've talked to Testify before, and he told me that he's a Protestant. Yep, I remember you told me that yesterday. But this is if he's only bringing in this word here and totally removing and not even looking at the other Greek grammatical context, trying to prove that this religion is the one true religion, it's dangerous. I mean, in my opinion, it is dangerous, right?
Greek Septuagint that is in the Hebrew Bible for Yahweh. In one passage, Jesus is called both God and Lord, the very names of Israel's one true God. Fourth, there's deeds. Who is it that made the heavens and the earth? Scripture is explicit. Only God creates. Isaiah 44:24 says, I am the Lord, who made all things, who alone stretched out the heavens.
This is gonna be some slop once again. Yes, Nubs, you hit on the head right there. It's like they're like, and I get it. If you look at it, I mean, if you even look at it in English, making a video like this, right, is a stretch, right? Nowhere does Jesus, if Jesus was actually God, he would have told the disciples point blank that he is God, right? We wouldn't need, it would be simple. It would be simple. It would destroy all other religion arguments. Islam, Judaism, I don't know, Mormonism at this point. Mormonism is a freak show from what it seems like. No disrespect. So maybe just a tiny bit, but no disrespect. No true disrespect. And they're looking at it in a language, English, which was obviously not being used by Jesus, not being used by any of his disciples, 2,000 years later, and trying to convey a message and putting words into Jesus' mouth, which, I mean, I find that insulting. I mean, look at the most genocidal empires in the world. 7 of the top 10 are Christian, or 7 of the top 12 are Christian. And it's funny how people say that Christian is this, peaceful religion, but not. History would say otherwise. History would definitely say otherwise. And again, I'm not trying to diss any of my Christian friends or, people who follow Christ. I've met a ton of amazing Christian people, but you're trying to argue something and trying to make it seem like what it just isn't, right? You're trying to convey and create a story and trying to make a narrative that is totally far-fetched, in my opinion.
Spread out the earth by myself. Job 38 shows angels were present when God laid the earth's foundations, but only as witnesses, not creators. Hebrews 1:2-3 says, God created the world through his Son, and verse 10, quoting Psalm 102, says, You, Lord, laid the foundation of the earth in the beginning, and the heavens are the work of your hands. That means Genesis 1:1, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, includes the Son, according to the author of Hebrews.
Dude, that is heinous. I mean, that should be a crime to say something like that. I mean, we already looked at Hebrew 10 or 1:10. Let's scroll back up. Yeah, Jesus is called Lord and Creator here. That's what Christians claim. I agree. It's a switchback, as we've recalled. It doesn't prove the deity of Christ, but trying to say, yeah, it's a natural shift. If you're trying to say that somehow Genesis 1:1 included Jesus Christ, I mean, that is, I don't even think, there's no way a true Christian scholar, any real Christian scholar at all, would even dare to even claim that to be a fact. That's what the Islamic take would be, for sure.
Jesus is identified as the Creator, the eternal and omnipotent Lord over all. Fifth, there is seed. Who is it that sits at God's right hand? The argument ends with Psalm 110:1. Sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. God never...
Well, yeah, I mean, so God tells the angels to sit at my... I mean, this is saying that God told Jesus to sit at his right hand. So it's either two things. One, God is telling the Messiah, Jesus, to sit at his right hand to exalt him, right? Which that would probably be the Islamic argument here. Or this is the Christian argument that God is telling the second God, Jesus, to sit at his right hand, since there are two gods, and this is not even a monotheistic religion at this point.
Sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. God never said that to any angel. The right hand is the position of divine authority and glory. Revelation 3:21 equates it with God's very own throne. Jesus was exalted there after his obedience and death. Yet, Hebrews also says that he was the eternal Son, through whom the world was created by God. His enthronement confirms who he already was. So, we see in one chapter, his enthronement confirms
like, how could you have a monotheistic religion and then show this photo right here? I mean, is this a meme? That's my question. Is this actually a meme? No, but for real, it's like, is this a meme? I'm starting to look very pasty right now. But is this a meme?
Who he already was. So, we see in one chapter, Hebrews 1 shows all 5 marks of deity, the honors, attributes, names, deeds, and very seed of God. This isn't just one single stray proof text. It's a full-scale demolition of any Unitarian reading. Hebrews 1 leaves no room for a merely created or human Christ. Jesus is worshipped as God, unchanging in nature, the creator of all things, and seated on the throne of divine authority. If you find these videos helpful, feel free.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, we just gotta do this one, man. That was a lot to take in, a lot of nonsense. So what did we learn? We learned that, again, he's trying to use the number one classic thing is that, they're trying to use this proskuneo word as, as like a shoehorn, where they're just going to fit any foot into the shoe, Jesus's foot into the shoe of divine worship, which that's totally wrong. We see that lot proskuneos angels. We see Joseph's brothers proskuneo him as well. We've even seen it in Revelations, where Jesus told his Yeah, we even in Revelations, Jesus told his followers that they were going to receive proskuneo worship as well. And here's the Lachero word. This never happens, and God the Father always receives it. I mean, that's just. And again, like, why even in your video would you even say something about Greek grammatical context and then not even? It's like you're playing peekaboo with these words. Yeah, not a single piece of fact. I mean, it comes down to ego, right? Ego is a really big thing in Islam, obviously in Buddhism as well. And, he is saying these things out of his own ego and his own opinion without truly coming in the religion at an open heart. If he really loved God, and if he really loved Jesus, he would be like, okay, let me educate myself to understand what is the true grammatical context of the intentions that the writers use with the manuscripts that happened when they were writing the New Testament, the third party and second party individuals who wrote it. And it's like, but then it's so disingenuous where is it? Here, where the author Testify then says like, oh, but if you look at the Greek grammatical context, well then it's like how can you even trick the listener to be like, oh yeah, I know, and I look at this stuff from a scholarly angle, but then you're totally not looking at it from like you're not even. It almost seems like you're purposefully denying it, or you're purposefully not showing it to your audience. What, for a couple thousand subscribers? I mean, come on. This is ridiculous, and I know I have a ton of his videos I'm going to be reacting to as well. But yeah, this doesn't come up to snuff in my own opinion, and I think there's a lot of the most of it is just, as we broke it down, he's trying to make arguments from his own ego and his own opinion, rather than being honest with the viewers. And so, it sucks, but hey, it happens. Okay, well, that was cool. We're gonna do one more video here. I have enough time, I think, for one more. Actually, I don't know if I have enough time for a 10-minute one, but let's see what you said here. When you make the shoe, it matters not whose foot goes in. Facts. Yeah, when you make a video, it doesn't matter. Let's see. Alright, I'll probably save these for tomorrow then, because I am interested. I definitely want to see Alex O'Connor talk to Ben Shapiro about this, because this seems super fascinating. And then I want to see this argument as well. I haven't given my Muslim brothers, a chance to speak on my live streams just yet. And then I don't know what this is about, but it seems interesting. And then I just find this podcast funny. But anyways, so yeah, we're gonna call the stream here. But Nubs, thanks for joining. It was cool chatting with you. I like your third party, and I think you have a based in I say based in reality, as in trying to look at it from a non-religious context, which I appreciate. It helps me learn as well. Obviously, I believe that there is a God. You're not convinced of the Christian belief for sure, or of any, why is there a need for a God is kind of where I'm thinking your head's at. But yeah, man, I'll definitely probably stream tomorrow as well, because I want to get into these videos. But and then if you have any videos that you find interesting, or anything you want me to look at, let me know. I'm happy to kind of check it out. But yeah, appreciate you stopping in, and yeah, I'm excited, to continue to do